Hello and welcome to week one, everybody. We're going to talk about the Socratic method. Don't get nervous about this. This is easier than you think. Um, some will look at philosophy and go, "Oh my goodness, this is kind of I can't pick this up." Yes, you can. It's not a problem. So I want to make sure that you read through the supplemental articles for this week. They're simple, straightforward. You have any questions, feel free to ask. No problem. But the Socratic method, breaking it down in the simplest terms possible, has to do with historically teaching by asking questions. Therefore, the learners would also ask questions. The idea behind the Socratic method is not to necessarily get into argumentation. As Socrates said, argumentation is akin to war. And in many cases, it is. Look at the world, look at TV, look at the news, that back and forth, everyone arguing on social media and all that. So it's really a matter of understanding why people think the way they do. And it also has to do with questioning ourselves as much as we question others. And the whole idea behind it is seeking the truth. That's scholarship in general when you're doing research. It's about seeking the truth, but it's also similar to what you'll do as a practitioner. So you're going to want to make evidence-based decisions, not based on a hunch or a whim. So a lot of questions can be asked others and ourselves before you can make an informed decision. So think of it along those lines. It's really that easy in that respect. But for managers, it gets deeper. So especially if you have a talented work pool, or you want to include employees in the decision making process, it's a good idea to ask them questions and also be open to them asking you questions as well. And the whole idea here, as the leader being you, is that you're using the talent that you have in a way to seek the answer that you need to solve problems. So, even more practical to that, as far as application, could be seen in how you coach and counsel employees. So, for instance, if say Bob at work has been late for 20 minutes for the past 2 weeks, and it's impacting the organization, you sit down in your head, you might think that Bob doesn't care, Bob's lazy, Bob's a jerk, whatever. But do we really know that? So you might start off that conversation with a, questions like, "We noticed you've been late for the past 20 minutes, past 2 weeks for, at least 20 minutes late, past 2 weeks, Bob. What are your thoughts about that?" What we did there, instead of coming up with an assumption and discipline right away, we try to identify what the problem is. Although in our heads, we might think Bob doesn't care, he's lazy, he's crazy, whatever, which may not be the truth. It may not be the truth at all. So after a while, Bob explains, "Well, a lot of things changed in my life and it's harder to get, to work because daycare's further away and a lot of issues at home are blah, 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 whatever." So in other words, there's some logical reason behind why Bob is late about 20 minutes, every day the past 2 weeks. So then it becomes, well, how can we solve this problem? So instead of saying running towards a solution as a leader, what you can do is ask more probing questions, basically asking, what is it we can do to solve the problem? What are your thoughts? So then you're giving that employee the chance to come up with ideas to explain, "No, I'm not going to be late anymore," or "Can I flex these hours and, maybe work an extra 20 minutes, later in the day," or whatever. So in other words, there's a feasible solution perhaps, but it requires us to not go with our original assumptions. So going back to the Socratic method, it's about questioning ourselves as much as we question others. Deeper than that, I guess, if you're dealing with work teams and you're trying to collaborate and get them to think, be creative, come up with thoughts and ideas, the best thing we can do is continue to ask questions. And oddly enough, what will happen as well is that your followers will also start asking questions of each other to you and the like. The idea behind coming up with a rational decision is based on just simple logic, critical thinking, and questioning ourselves as much as we question others. So this is for all of you as far as implications for leadership. Since you're taking an org leadership course, the idea would be that we have to be careful of acting on what we think until we have all the information or as much information as possible to make a decision. It's as simple as that, folks. So focus on that this week. Um, feel free to ask questions. I always like questions about this, but there's plenty of supplements for you to look at there. So just remember, if anything, question ourselves as much as we question others. You can better seek truth by asking questions as a mean to understand why someone thinks the way they do, why someone behaves the way they do, or to gauge some ideas and thoughts from your team and how to solve problems or innovate your organization. And that's basically what it is, folks. So what we're doing is synthesizing ancient philosophy into modern times, which I think is a wonderful thing, that the philosophy you're going to learn in this class still exists today. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. A lot of theories and philosophical thoughts may dissipate at some point, but this is the ancient philosophy. A lot of the ancients really carry information that we can use every day in our lives. So thank you very much, and I'll see you on the boards.